The days after returning home were difficult, but Lisa felt a growing sense of clarity as she moved through the motions of her daily life. She had always been a fighter, but the emotional toll of Mark's betrayal weighed heavily on her. It wasn't just the affair. It was the lies, the broken trust, the years she had invested in a relationship that now felt like a shadow of what it had been. Mark tried to reach out, calling incessantly, sending flowers, and leaving messages begging for forgiveness. He even showed up at her work, his face drawn and desperate. But Lisa remained firm. She didn't let him in, not even a crack. She couldn't risk allowing him back into her heart only to be hurt again. Her friends and family, though sympathetic, all had their own opinions about what she should do. Some said she should give Mark a second chance, that marriages were worth fighting for. But Lisa knew in her heart that some wounds were too deep to heal. Her best friend, Emily, supported her decision unconditionally. "You're stronger than you think, Lisa," Emily had said over lunch one afternoon. "You deserve someone who will never make you question your worth." Lisa couldn't help but nod. She had spent years putting Mark's needs before her own, excusing his flaws, believing in him even when he had stopped believing in himself. She had neglected her own happiness in the process. But now, she was done. Several weeks passed, and Lisa started focusing on herself. She threw herself into her career, enrolled in yoga classes, and even took up painting, something she had always wanted to try but never had the time for. Slowly but surely, she began to rediscover who she was outside of being a wife and mother. One evening, while sitting in her living room, surrounded by paint supplies and unfinished canvases, Lisa received a message from Mark. It was different from the others. There were no demands for forgiveness, no pleas for her to reconsider. "I know I ruined everything, Lisa," it read. "I don't expect you to forgive me, but I just wanted you to know that I'm truly sorry. What we had was real, and I'll carry the regret of losing you for the rest of my life. I hope you find the happiness you deserve." For a moment, Lisa sat in silence, staring at the message. It wasn't the apology she had expected, nor the closure she thought she wanted. But it was honest, and for the first time in a long while, it felt like Mark had finally taken responsibility for his actions. Lisa took a deep breath, her mind at peace for the first time in months. She wasn't ready to let him back into her life, but she realized she no longer needed to carry the weight of anger and betrayal. She had healed enough to let go, for herself. She typed a simple reply. "Thank you." It was the closure she needed, and with that, she turned her attention back to her canvas. The past was behind her, but her future was still wide open. As time passed, Lisa continued to rebuild her life. She grew stronger, more independent, and more confident than she had ever been. The pain of Mark's betrayal would always be a part of her story, but it no longer defined her. She had learned to trust herself again, and that was the most important thing of all. Mark never reached out again, and Lisa never looked back. She embraced the journey ahead, one where her happiness was in her own hands, free from the shadows of the past months turned into a year, and Lisa's life gradually transformed. She grew into the woman she had always known herself to be, but had neglected in the wake of her marriage. She took trips alone, explored new hobbies, and rekindled old friendships. Her confidence soared, and for the first time in years, she felt truly free. However, the journey of healing wasn't without its challenges. There were moments of doubt and lingering memories that tried to creep in, especially when she saw couples around her, holding hands and laughing. Lisa couldn't deny that a part of her missed the idea of companionship. The shared experiences, the connection that once felt so real with Mark. But she no longer felt the desperation for love or validation. She realized that her happiness didn't depend on someone else. It had to come from within. One evening, Lisa sat in a cozy coffee shop, reviewing a work presentation, when her phone buzzed with an incoming call. It was from her mother. "Hey, Mom," Lisa answered, her voice light. "Sweetheart, I was just talking to your sister. Have you heard from Mark lately?" Her mother's voice was gentle, probing, but with a tone that Lisa had come to expect. Lisa paused. It had been months since she'd thought about him. The name still carried weight, but it no longer held the power it once did. Not really. I think he's moved on. Lisa shrugged, though a small part of her still wondered about his life, what he was doing now. Her mother continued, trying to steer the conversation in a new direction. Well, I heard from a friend of a friend that he's seeing someone seriously now. I'm not sure how much truth there is to it, but I thought you should know. Lisa blinked, a slight pang of curiosity mixed with a dose of relief. Mark had moved on. In some strange way, that realization gave her closure. She wasn't ready to know all the details, but the thought of him in someone else's arms no longer caused the ache it once would have. She nodded, even though her mother couldn't see her. Thanks for telling me, Mom. I'm okay with it. Really? The conversation shifted back to lighter topics, but Lisa's mind lingered on Mark's new relationship. He had done what she couldn't. He had found a way to move forward, to start over. And perhaps there was a final piece of the puzzle that had been missing in her healing process. A few weeks later, Lisa was invited to a networking event by a colleague. It was the kind of gathering she would have avoided in the past, feeling unsure about mingling in large crowds. But tonight, something had shifted. She was no longer the woman hiding behind the walls of her broken marriage. She was Lisa, a woman who had weathered storms and come out stronger for it. At the event, she met someone new. His name was Jason, and he was warm, funny, and incredibly easy to talk to. They struck up a conversation about their shared interest in travel, and before long, they were discussing everything from favorite destinations to life philosophies. Jason was kind and attentive, but Lisa didn't feel pressured. She felt, for the first time since her marriage ended, like she could just be herself without any expectations. As the evening drew to a close, Jason asked if she would like to grab coffee sometime. I'd love that, Lisa said, her smile genuine. She didn't know where this new connection would lead, but for the first time in a long while, she didn't feel scared to open herself up to the possibility of something new. When Lisa got home that night, she sat on her balcony, watching the city lights twinkle in the distance. She thought about the person she was now. The woman who had stood up to betrayal, who had chosen herself over everything else. She had loved deeply, had lost painfully, but she had also learned to love herself. It wasn't about finding someone else to fill the void. It was about understanding that she was complete just as she was. And if love found her again, it would be because she was ready, not because she was searching to heal an old wound. For now, Lisa was content. She was ready for whatever came next, knowing that her strength, her independence, and her heart were enough.